past haunts us all. Whether it be a person, place, or thing, we are reluctant to let go. We call to the dead out of desperation and intrigue, searching for answers about what lies behind the shadows. We are paranormal researchers. We are Necromancers. Hello. Welcome to the Necromancer Live Show. I am your host, Justin Brown, and this is episode 45 with Chris Balassone. He's from Virginia, but before we get into who Chris is and what he's about, we're going to say hi to our chat moderator, Jessica Bias. What is up with Jessica this evening? So are you ready for this one? You're ready, right? All right, you're feeling good and you're ready. Okay. All right, well, Chris has a handle in the paranormal field. He's known as the paranormal paramedic. Okay, he's a fire marshal. He's an ex-Marine. He's had EMT training. He does a lot of that type of work. Okay, so he's in the paranormal field, but he uses that unique angle and that knowledge from the medical field in his work. Okay, he's from Colonial Heights, Virginia. After Chris served as a Marine and EMT, he found himself solidified in the paramedic field. After watching a paranormal show that featured a group of investigators, he decided that it was time to take his interest in the paranormal a step further by joining a group of his own. After climbing the ranks and becoming lead investigator of Tri-City Paranormal, Chris pursued his interest in linking the paramedic profession with how the paranormal is investigated. He uses medical equipment to measure the effects that paranormal phenomena have on the body. Okay, so that is very, very interesting to me. Okay, so let's say hi to Chris Balassone. What's up, buddy? What's going on?
Hey, what's happening?
Thank you very much for coming on the show and having a talk with me. What I try to do is I try to get all my contacts on Facebook who are paranormal researchers onto my show to get to know them and to support them. So you're number 45, brother.
Well, I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. I'm very excited to hear how you apply your medical knowledge to the paranormal, because I have not got a chance to speak to anybody that does that. So, but before we get into that, I always start with why in the heck you investigate the paranormal. Why do you stick to it? Why do you invest all the money and the time? And I know your bio says that you have interest in the paranormal. You like watching the shows, but I want to know more. Did you have any personal experience, young age, old age? Are you just fascinated with the topic, or are you just curious about life after death? So tell us a little bit more.
I had experiences when I was younger. Main one that stands out is when I was like, 13, 14, somewhere around there. I saw my grandfather, who'd been dead for like 10 years, sitting in the corner of the living room. And he just looked at me. He stood up, he smiled, walked into the wall and disappeared. Wow. At that time, I was a little freaked out by it. But it got me kind of thinking. I've had a couple of experiences here and there throughout, but I never really paid a whole lot of attention to it. Like that one was profound. But other ones, I really didn't pay too much attention to it until, years later when all this came about.
Right. So you start your career in the Marine Corps, in the medical field, and, at the fire station and all that. Thank you for the service, by the way.
Thank you.
At what point, can you elaborate? I know you're watching a show and you've seen the investigators doing their thing, and did you think like, well, hell, if they can do it, I can do it too? Kind of let us know what happened.
So, yeah, and to be honest with you, I was actually an EMT before I went into the military. I was actually became an EMT when I was 16 years old. So I've been in the EMS field for 25 years now. But when I was watching the show, I'd been really interested in the paranormal and just kind of playing around with stuff. And when I saw the show, my words were, "Holy crap! People actually go out and do this." Now I have to find a team, and that's what I did.
So, what year was this?
2007.
So that's pretty early in the beginning of, the whole wave of paranormal pop culture. The shows just started
Yeah,
to pop up here and there. You had Ghost Hunters, and I think Ghost Adventures just started on the scene in 2007.
I believe
So,
so.
um, what show did you like out of curiosity?
It was Ghost Hunters.
Ghost
I didn't know
Hunters.
what it was called at the time. I just kind of switched to it. It was in there, and I watched it for a couple minutes. And went, wow! I did not know there were people that actually did this. Now I got to find them.
So how did you go about finding the group? Did you like run an ad? What'd you do?
I started. I started searching around, and the funny part is the team. And I actually now own this team. Own the name. I'm the director, but the guy who founded it is actually a paramedic as well. He actually taught my paramedic class,
Mm.
and I knew him. And I got in touch with him and was like, "Man, I didn't know you did this. I'd like to talk to you some." So I sat down, I talked to him for a while, and said, "I want to be a part of this." He goes, "Yeah, come on." So I joined the team. He kind of showed me what he knew, and then I just took it and ran with it. And he's like, "I never expected it to get to where it was, or where I got it to." He didn't expect it. He was very happy for it. And then he got to a point where he just had too much going on. He goes, "Look, I can't do it anymore. It's yours." So I took it and ran with it.
Nice. I'm glad that you stuck with it and that you're keeping at it and doing some interesting things. Now, so did you have an interest in applying your medical knowledge and the equipment to what you were doing in the beginning?
Now, at the beginning, it never crossed my mind, believe it or not. In the beginning, it was more, okay, let's see this equipment. And this was before, a lot of the equipment that's now out there. It was just basic stuff that, the digital recorders, the millimeters, the K2s, just, the regular security systems that we used. And it was like a rudimentary one. I mean, it was basic. So at that time, I was just learning the fundamentals of it and learning how it works and just the basics of it. A couple of years went by, and that's when I went, you know what? Maybe the medical has something to do with this. It's another avenue that nobody's really searched on. Everybody looks at the scientific. A lot of people look at the religion. The way I look at it is you got to do a full circle. You want to check everything out. And I think the most anybody really did was they look at a medicine cabinet to see what medicines they are. A lot of people may not know what the medicines do and have to look them up. With me as a paramedic, I know what they do, which also helps kind of with when you're doing the interviews. And if they say, "Oh, well, I take this or I don't take that or whatever," I'll find out. I'm going to find out. And that could bring in a whole nother level in that investigation of, okay, well, now you're lying to me about something. How do I know this is for real? So it's so multifaceted. That's just kind of what my team does. I do my own research, which is more of the using more medical equipment. Basically, it's a cause and effect. What I'm looking at is, do we cause the paranormal experiences, or are we an effect of what's happening? And that's kind of what we're doing with the biometrics and the physiological changes in our bodies. What I'm looking at is um, also, will our body, if it's happening, is our body reacting to it subconsciously and throwing our body into a fight or flight system, the fight or flight, without us really knowing it. So that's another area of research I'm doing.
Okay, that's interesting. What types of equipment do you use to determine that?
So right now I just use pretty basic medical equipment. When I can get my hands on one, I have a handheld EKG, which is electrocardiograph. It's pretty basic. It will give you a 30-second readout of your heartbeat. A pulse ox, which is a little thing you just put on your finger, reads your pulse and your oxygen levels. And I have a like a wireless portable EEG or electroencephalograph that kind of reads it. I don't know how you know accurate it is, but it's still a way to measure brain waves. What I was saying is what I can get my hands on, and I actually bring out a full, like what they use in the ambulances and stuff, an EKG monitor. What I did one time with a couple of friends who are all medical is we took it and put it on a piece of copper. And we put little stickers on the copper because copper is, very conductive. And we turned it on, and it just has a plain, they call it an isoelectric line, just a flat line. Okay, which we expect. The place that we're doing it has no electricity, no nothing. We expect it not to read any kind of electricity. So we start asking questions and then start saying, if you did this, if you killed yourself in this room because it was a suicide bathroom at St. Albans, um, we feel bad that you had to do that, and all of a sudden there were waves that started showing up on the EKG. Well, we can't explain that. There wasn't any before that, there wasn't any after that, and there should never have been, because that means electricity had to go through that copper, and those leads had to pick up that electricity or that energy to make their waves on the screen.
Whoa! So the copper that you had the instrument hooked up to, kind of elaborate on exactly what that looked like and how it was set up.
It's just literally a square, probably 4 inch by 4 inch piece of copper. That's it. And we just put 3 stickers that had the leads that go to the monitor that pick up the electricity. And that's all we did. Just left it up right where it was.
Whoa. That is really interesting. Were you able to do that experiment again?
I haven't done it since then, but I do have it up on my YouTube page.
Yeah, I would be very interested in seeing you continue to do that if that's possible.
Yeah. Like I said, we did catch it on video. I want to do it more and in a couple more places. I also, again, hook it up to myself. I've done that to a couple places, and that's where, some answers come up, but there's more questions, which is why I really like it. Because, for instance, when I set it up on myself at an investigation, I put it on, sat down, heart rate was about 70 beats per minute, no problem. We got up, we moved, sat down. It obviously raised because I was walking, but we waited for it to go back down, and then we just started sitting there and just talking, and just for no reason, my heart rate went up to 100.
Mm-hmm.
And I hadn't moved. I hadn't done anything different. And that's when it started popping in my mind. And then I started kind of seeing shadows. I'm going, okay, is my body reacting to something subconsciously before I even know it's there and going into the fight or flight response? Mm-hmm. So that's when that research started.
Yeah, that's interesting too. I have definitely experienced increased heart rate on investigations. Not a lot. I know Waverly Hills Sanatorium I did the first time I was there. It's interesting to speculate what causes it if it has a paranormal source. Sometimes, depending on the area, you feel like maybe if there's some imprint, some empathic imprint on, in the area that you're in, are you feeling it? Are you feeling the past emotions of people who were there? That's one possibility.
And then you can look at it the other side too is, and this is another thing that I've gotten onto lately, is you're going into these places that are haunted. So are you already predisposed that something is going to happen, so you're already going in anxious?
Mm-hmm.
And you may not feel it, but your body is under the stress without you realizing you are anxious. It already just goes ahead and does that because you know what you're going into.
I already found a way to test that theory.
Okay.
Here you go, Chris. It's going to take some setup and some doing, but you can get an access to a place. Tell your investigators that it's haunted, but it's not.
Okay.
Tell them that it's haunted. Go in there, hook them up, and see if you can replicate those results.
Right. And the other thing I was going to do is with my team is go in, and this is kind of doing some research as well. And I think one of my teammates is actually watching, so you heard none of this, John Reese. Is if when we get cases, it's usually my wife and I that go out. She's the case manager. Mm-hmm. We do the interview, find out what's going on. Well, what we're going to do is come back, not tell the team on what they say is going on in the house, just go in and set up and see how they react to it without them knowing. Yeah, they may think there's some activity, but we could say, well, we think it's we can explain it all. I don't think it's anything, and see if that changes how
Right.
they're going to react to it.
Yeah, I'm a fan of double-blind experiments. That's definitely
Absolutely.
stuff you should be doing, and that's cool. But I'm super intrigued by picking up brainwaves off a piece of square copper. That
Well, that one was just it wasn't, that one's just a cardio
oh,
heart.
okay.
That's what the EKG is.
So you got a rhythm
But it's
off of
still,
it.
I got a what they call an idiopathic rhythm. It wasn't a formed true rhythm, but
Okay.
there was a waveform on there.
Oh, that's still cool, but I would try it with the EEG too.
Well, see, now the problem with that is the EEG I have has to have contact to your head
Okay.
with for it to work. So just leaving it out, it's not going to work.
Right. Or it has to complete a circuit. Do you put stuff to make
Kind of.
contact,
This
the
one
gel
doesn't.
stuff,
It's like I
or
said. It's a very basic one that goes on your head and it has like a little foam padded thing that goes on your forehead and like a little clip that goes on your ear. So if it
oh,
doesn't make that contact, it's not going to work at
all
all.
right. Yeah, if you could
So
figure out how to get it to work without putting it on someone's head, that'd be cool.
right. And actually, I just came back from Mid South Paranormal Convention where I did find out that there is a neurologist doing studies like this. And I have his name and, well, part of his name. I have the website. So I want to reach out to him because he's another one that he's doing a lot of brain mapping.
Hmm.
And that's kind of what I've been wanting to do. And who better than to do it than a neurologist? So I'm going to touch base
Yeah,
with him, see if we can really tag team some stuff and get this medical part of it really, really going and make more people more educated on it so that when they do these investigations, they can be more rounded with, like I said, the science, the religion, the medical, everything, psychological, all of it. Bring it all together.
absolutely. I've been very, very in depth studying Stuart Hammeroff, who is a clinical. Um, um, yeah, he puts people to sleep for surgery, and you know what?
Hypnotist.
Yeah, so he has discovered some things to kind of understand consciousness a little bit more and memory and how that
Right.
process works. So the whole brainwave
Yes.
thing is cool. The heart
Yeah.
thing is cool too, but detecting someone's brainwaves, a disembodied brainwave would be rad to me. But
Yeah.
before we
Yeah.
go any further, I know there's questions and comments. So
Okay.
Jessica, will you let us know what questions there are for Chris?
Sure, sure. Derek asked one. Does Chris ever take a moment and wonder how many spirits has stuck with him and around him from the people that he has treated that's passed afterward?
Yes. Not at first. Usually, when you're dealing with treating them as a paramedic, and I've explained this quite a bit lately, the last thing we're thinking about is paranormal. The first thing we're thinking of is we got to keep this person from dying. So that's our
Right.
main focus, obviously. After that, if they do pass, a lot of paramedics, most paramedics, firefighters, we have this thing where we disassociate. So if they do pass, we just kind of move on and don't think about it anymore. So, but yeah, I've thought about it, and we've had things happen in the house. Now, whether it's from something that happened at work or if it's these places that we've gone to investigate, I can't tell you. I'm more apt to believe that it was places from where we've investigated that we brought stuff back.
Okay. Scotty Fox said haunted objects may be useful target for those with some of those experiments.
It could be. The problem is I don't know how controlled it would be because
Sure.
we don't know where the object came from, what it's supposed to be, what could be attached to it. So that's kind of it could help, but it could add more questions as well.
Sure. And that's all I mean, they're kind of talking amongst themselves right now as well. But we have Sam on, obviously Derek's on, Scotty Fox is on, Spirit Seekers Paranormal's watching, Tony, Deborah. I think that's it for right now.
All right, cool, Jess. Thank you very much. We'll get back to you guys.
No problem.
Please, I'm sure you guys have tons of questions for Chris. It's always interesting to hear what the questions they have, because I can't think of everything to ask, because sometimes I get stuck on just one thing that interests me, and everybody has all these different kinds of interests that involve the work you do. So please help a brother out. Send the questions towards Justice Way, and we'll get them answered by Chris, hopefully. But
Absolutely.
let me ask you, what, since you've been investigating the paranormal, have you had any experiences maybe as profound as seeing your grandfather's spirit, or maybe not that profound? Have you had anything outside of a blip on a gadget or equipment that you've personally experienced? Can you tell us about that?
I've had a couple of them. Okay, so there's a couple of them where it's St. Albans.
Mm-hmm.
Saw a lot of shadow people, a lot. Saw one where I actually brought the group there to investigate, and they were kind of just doing the tour, and it was broad daylight. And the lady that was giving us the tour was talking, and she was in a doorway, and I just looked, and this black mask covered the doorway behind her. I've had something at a friend's house at a former team member's. We were going down the stairs to the basement, and it was her and my wife in front of me, and I was in the back. And we went down these stairs. There was a door to the right, and it was open. They walked by. As I walked by, this huge black mass filled the door and lunged towards me. I kind of jumped back, threw my fists up, said a couple of nice words, and they turned around and was like, "What is wrong with you?" And I told them what was going on. They saw I was shaking. I mean, it took me by surprise. Those kind of things don't happen very often, but when they do, they get me a little jumpy. And I don't know what I was going to do. I guess I was going to try to fight it, but that's my first reaction. Throw my fists up and we're going. But I've had stuff. I've been pushed out of an attic on an investigation, or pushed through the attic through the ceiling. And with that one, I actually lost time. I didn't realize what had happened until I caught myself from going through the whole ceiling. So, and the only reason we found that out is at that time the founder was still with us. He called me like a couple days later because I could not figure out why I couldn't remember about 5 to 6 seconds. I just don't remember it. And he said, "Look, man, you didn't fall. You were pushed. I'm going to send you something." He sent me an EVP. It catches me walking. You hear me fall. The reports were that the people in the house were being pushed. And as I fall, another investigator goes, "Oh my God, are you okay?" I said, "Yeah, I just fell." And in the background, this growly voice says, "I push her," which is the female that would live there was being pushed. So I was like, well, that explains a little bit of what just happened to me.
Right. I was very skeptical. I was touched one time. I'm sure that was one time, and it is so. What's the word to describe it? It frightens you.
Yeah.
It makes that part, that little part in your mind to think that, oh, they can't hurt me. I'm safe from all this. It makes you feel vulnerable, I guess is what I'm thinking about.
Right.
How vulnerable do you think that we are to some of the entities out there?
Everybody's different. And the reason I say that is we are all, my whole team and me, I call ourselves, we're skeptical believers. We like to believe, but you're going to have to show us. Mm-hmm. So depending on where you're at in that level, when I first started, I was the one that would kick in the door and say, "Show yourself," coming at, 100 miles an hour. At that point in time, I kind of shut it off. I had a fence up, a gate, whatever you want to call it. So therefore, I didn't experience a lot because I wouldn't let it. Mm-hmm. So it depends on how much you're going to allow to open up is how vulnerable you become.
So what do you think that guard is? Do you think it's just part of your consciousness that decides whether the paranormal can affect you, or do you have, a more precise explanation for that?
I don't have a precise. It could be a number of things. It could be your subconscious saying, "Look, we're just going to go ahead and put our guard up now." It could be you just saying, "Look, I don't believe in this stuff," or I want you to come at me kind of deal where you've just closed yourself off. Or it could be even, the other um, theories of, you have parts of your brain that have been shut off because you've been told so long that ghosts don't exist, that part that can see, hear, feel, like they say little children can because they haven't been told, that part of the brain has been shut off. That could be another aspect. Some people's may just be a little bit more open than others.
I have an idea. I want to know what you think about it because it involves the medical field.
Okay.
It feels like you talk about the subconscious. What if there was some type of spiritual immune system in place to where
Okay.
you can build up an immunity to things that could possibly have an effect on you physically, spiritually, what have you? What if there's
Yeah.
ways to control how immune you are to things, and even with the possibility of, like you said, being unaware that you can or cannot be affected by things because of this natural shield that you have. So if you get maybe in sync or connected with this, we'll say, immune system, maybe you can start to control it, mentally or metaphysically, for lack of a better way. Do you think that's a possibility?
Yeah, I do. I think it is. And what you're calling a supernatural or paranormal immune system, I believe everybody does it to a point of how much do you want to believe? Because depending on how much you want to believe is what you're going to experience. So I think without them really knowing that's what they're doing is building up their immunity, if they don't want to acknowledge it or notice that something's going on, that means that their immunity is going to be built up and it's not going to affect them.
Right, but basically what I'm trying to say is if there's things out there to get you, and they can get you, what's stopping them? Even if you're aware or unaware, there has to be some, fail safe, because, our physiological bodies are bombarded with things that can harm us all the time. So we build up immune
Right.
systems. So I kind of thought that was a cool idea to think about, maybe an angle to research one day possible. But
Absolutely. Yeah. And then I'll bring in, like I said, a lot of this stuff, research I've done has maybe given me a couple of answers, but given me more questions.
that's right.
So with that of you know, what if you're building up an immunity? Okay. Well, immunity to what? Is it because that you don't believe in them that they have no effect on you, or is it something else? Why of that you're building up this immunity that they won't come near you?
Right.
So yeah, oh yeah, it adds more questions, which I love because that just gives me more research.
You also have to consider that things can be affecting you whether you believe it or not. Like, some people discredit things. Like, something could be going on that's paranormal, but if they don't believe, they don't
Right,
consider it as a possibility too.
right,
Before I ask
yeah,
this
absolutely.
next question that I hope you're going to love because I love it, we're going to go back to Jess and see if she can read out, because I see there's several questions for Chris.
Yes. One asks, does Chris think there might be a connection between the meds people took before they died and a spirit detected from them?
If so, the question is, do I think that the medicines that they took can affect them afterwards,
Yes,
and once they've died?
correct.
The medicines, short answer is no, because medicines affect your body. Once you die, the body is gone. The only thing that's left is the energy. So it doesn't affect your energy. It affects
Okay.
the body.
Okay. And Derek asked another question. What are your thoughts on out of body experiences? And do you think that the medical field should work on validating it?
They already are. With near death experiences, what they're calling them in hospitals. There have been some hospitals, ICU units, where they have
Mhm.
taken and written sentences above the tiles so that if you're looking up at the tiles, you can't see them because they're obviously inside. Um, and people that have had near death experiences or have died, they've brought them back. Once they're able to talk, they will come in and ask, did you see anything? when you die? Did you? And there's been, I think they've said one or two, I believe, if I'm correct, I may be wrong, that have said, yes, there was a sentence that said blah, 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 blah. And they go back and check to see, because there's only a few people that know what was written there, and they've been correct. So there are near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences that have been, I guess, proved by the medical aspect of it to a point. Of course, there's always going to be a skeptic or somebody that's going to just destroy it and say, no, that's not possible. But that has happened.
Sure. Spirit Seekers Paranormal asks, what has been the best piece of visual paranormal evidence and best EVP?
So visual, I've never caught on camera. Imagine that. But I would say it was either St. Albans or that person's house when those just huge black shadow figures just towered over everything. Pretty awesome. Best EVP was probably in the house of a client from years and years and years and years and years ago. I mean, I've got a couple of them actually, but this is one that I really liked because the grandfather of this kid built this house with his hands, gave it to his daughter, who was this kid's mother. He unfortunately committed suicide years later. The boy never knew what happened, and I always said that grandfather was there and all that stuff. So they called us in. We went in. The first time we did an investigation, we kept everybody in the house. They went to sleep. We put cameras in there and all, recorders. We asked if there was somebody there. Can you just let us know? And a voice recorder in the boys' room says, I'm here. Pretty clear. Next when we came in, we said we want everybody out of the house. We did the same thing, set everything up. As we were moving to a room, we got a growly voice saying, get out. So I went back after both investigations. I think we did one more. And I said, look, we've come to the conclusion that it is a grandfather. He's okay with us being here as long as you're here. Mm-hmm. When you're not here, he's defending this house. He built it with his hands. It's y'all's. Now we got a bunch of strangers traipsing around the house, and you guys aren't here. So he's going to do everything he can to get us out of there. So those were some of the best ones that we got.
Okay. Tony asks, would there be a way to map the brainwave pattern from a person that claims to have a psychic abilities while they're given a reading or communication with entities?
Well, I caught some of that you caught out, but if with the brain mapping, actually, this neurologist is supposedly doing that, doing brain mapping with psychics. That's one of the big things that I want to do as well is try to do some kind of brain mapping, bring them into a place, see what parts of the lobes of the brain fire and which ones don't, and see what's different between a psychic and a regular person going into these places, or when the psychic starts receiving messages or whatever, to see what part of the brain is active at that time.
Okay. That's it for right now.
Okay.
All right, Jessica, thank you. We'll get back to you.
Sure.
Yeah, me and Tony Felosi, I do like a live blog show on Facebook every Tuesday, and I was talking about the psychic phenomenon on the show as a topic, and we had got into a conversation in private message about trying to do some scientific research, with psychics, hooking them up devices. So I'm thinking that you're probably going to have, because I know they do a lot of experiments on mice and rats. They cut off the top of their head and put electrodes into their brain and to figure out some crazy stuff. Like, they did that with the pineal gland when they discovered that it secreted the DMT. So they're probably going to have to do some similar stuff to really know a lot, but that is interesting. The brainwave research would be cool.
They do have caps and stuff now that gets pretty good brain mapping stuff done. The neurologist, from what I understand, has been able to prove that there are certain lobes that start to fire that normal people's don't when things start to happen with the psychics, and he has done that from what I've been told.
Yeah, that's doable, but there's probably some neurotransmitters and other substances that get released that you would have to.
Could be. Could be, but that's why I want to talk to him. I don't specialize in it. He does, so he'd be the man absolutely to talk to with that stuff. That's kind of again why I want to get in touch with him and go, look, we need to team up and do some stuff because I think he could be really good for the paranormal field.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. You're a fire marshal, right?
Yeah, fire investigator. Yep.
Okay.
In the fire marshal's office.
One of the topics on the psychic show I did last night was pyrokinesis. Okay.
Okay.
Have you ever investigated a fire that you couldn't find the source for, that you thought that might have had some paranormal source?
I cannot say that.
Darn it.
I cannot.
You were the best. You were the best possible chance of trying to figure it out, because I know one of my team members, Derek Schreiner, he does some volunteer firefighting in Aurora, Indiana, and
Yeah.
I was going to ask him too, but I haven't got a chance. But what do you guys do when you investigate a fire and you can't find any ignition source or any rational reason why the fire started? Explain, what do you do? How do you write it up in the report?
So if we can't, I have yet to be the one where we can't at least define where the origin was.
Mm-hmm.
We can tell you where it started.
Right.
There are times where we can't tell you what caused it, only because we have ideas, but to be 100% certain, we would have to call in electrical engineers or this or that. And, the cities don't have the money. Now, the insurance companies have. Mm-hmm. They've done that before and usually proved us what we thought we're doing, what it was right. Okay. But in those situations, if we can't 100% say, then we claim it as undetermined.
Interesting. So, so maybe occasionally some of the investigations kind of get in depth with how they, pull their sources together to figure out what happened.
Right. A lot of the times what happens is, obviously, with being for the fire department in the fire marshal's office, once the fire department is called out for a fire and they say, yes, it's a fire, we're immediately brought out so that we can get there from the time that they're there, hopefully, not too far after they put it out, or even if sometimes we're there quick enough to where the fire's still going so that we can see what's going on. Mm-hmm. Once they are able to put it out and make sure everything's safe, air quality wise, stuff for us to go in, we start going in and we start digging. Looking for the origin, looking for the cause, seeing what could be going on, taking pictures of everything. I mean, we check it all. Then the insurance company comes out and they usually get a private investigator. And with that private investigator, we meet with them and we both work together and see if we can come up with the same answers as well. We also have arson dogs that we call out. If we can't figure it out, we'll call them out just to make sure that it's, somebody didn't throw down some kind of ignitable liquid and the dog will hit on it. So, right. I mean, we have lots and lots and lots of tools to try to figure it out. We even, there's one where we had 100 and something golf carts catch on fire in this barn. We even called out, because the ATF has, they do bomb and arson as well. So we call out ATF people to come help us if we have to.
Yeah, I can imagine get pretty involved, especially when there's insurance companies involved.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, I've researched, spontaneous combustion cases and cases that involve maybe some paranormal causes to fires. So I thought, I would ask you, do you think it's possible? Do you think it's possible that the paranormal can cause any type of combustion?
I'll put it this way. Anything's possible. Probable? Maybe. I believe in psychokinesis. But when it comes to the with the fire, a lot of it, we get calls like we just don't know. All right, well, have they done anything with the floors and just left a rag? Rags with linseed oil will spontaneously combust. Things like that people, it's everyday things that they do that they don't think about. I was just reading about one the other day where somebody was doing some work on a hardwood floor and they vacuumed up the shavings and stuff. House caught on fire. Well, it come to find out that those wood pieces in that vacuum heated up and spontaneously combusted, melted the vacuum, caught the rest of the house on fire.
Right. All right. Well,
So
those
it
are.
can get very in depth.
Oh yeah, I can imagine. Let's shift gears real quick. Before we go back to the chat and see if there's any questions. Is there any? You have a lot of enough medical knowledge to know, and you've been involved with enough cases with people with medical histories to know. You mentioned earlier you can kind of tell if someone's lying or if someone's trying to pull a fast one on you, or if they have some type of pathology that would suggest that they're crazy or they have something psychological going on. Now, when you do client cases, is that the norm? Do you find that a lot of the cases you do, people just have psychological issues or a problem with their medications, or is that rare?
Yes, I have had some. One in general, which even solidified what I was thinking, was saying that this was happening, that was happening, this was happening. Okay, well, what kind of things do you have? Well, I had a traumatic brain injury 10 years ago. Okay, now we're talking. When was the last time you got checked? 10 years ago. Well, how often were you supposed to get checked? Every year. So you don't know that this has gotten better or worse and that this could be causing some of the things. And they refused to believe anything. I know what it is, and it's not that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, if that's how you feel, then there's nothing I can do for you. I'm telling you what you need to do is go get medically checked because they told you were supposed to get this, the TBI checked every year to make sure, there's not any more damage going on. And you haven't done it for 10 years. So you don't know. That's what we do. That's, I'll help you for as much as I can, but if I'm going to give you advice on, look, let's just make sure and cover all the bases, check the psychologist, go to a doctor. And if you're refusing to do that, then we can't help you anymore. Because, I've told people we'll get you the answers, but they may not be the ones you want to hear.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, it does happen quite often. And there are times where I've come back and said, look, this medication, from what I've looked up, done more research on them, these two can contradict themselves. Or the best one is the antidepressants, they're called SSRIs, or selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. If people decide they don't want to take them anymore and they just stop, they have a thing called a SSRI withdrawal syndrome when you start hallucinating and seeing things.
Mm-hmm.
So I've had, maybe one case of that before where, they said I've started seeing the shadow everywhere. All right, well, what medications are on? Well, I started on Paxil, but now I decided I didn't need it anymore. I was like, well, there's your problem right there.
So, do you work that, that possibility into your protocol or procedure when you investigate the paranormal, specifically someone's, residential home, or, if someone reports a haunting to you? Do you always look for those flags?
Absolutely. That's why we do interviews before we come out to do an investigation. Because those interviews, not only will I find out about the medical, because I have a worksheet, I ask them, you don't have to fill it out, but if you volunteer the information, I'd appreciate it because that could help us. For medical, any kind of medicines, any kind of medical history, any allergies, anything like that. Also in the interview, it kind of gives us a chance to see how they interact with people. I get to see their house. I look for little things that some people don't. The main thing I look for, which I'm sure a lot of people do, is I want to look at your movies. What kind of movies you got? Do you have The Exorcist and all these things? Then you're saying that you've got something bad in there. You watch too much movies, or that's what you're expecting to happen because you've watched stuff. So I look at stuff like that.
Yeah, I've noticed the last 4 or 5 years I've Facebook stalked my clients, and that tells you all kinds of stuff. Their likes,
it does.
The TV shows that they watch, the groups that they're in, their posts. Well, you can profile someone super easy using Facebook and Twitter.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's see here. Let's get to know your team a little bit. We've talked a lot about you. Tell us about who's in your team, what they do, their relationship to you.
So The team I have now is right now it's myself. Like I said, I'm the director. I have the case manager is Amanda, who's my wife. She's really good at reading people. Really good at reading people. Um, she's more on the. I would say she's sensitive. I would say she is asensitive, but she's sensitive, and she can tell when things are not right. Um, my tech manager is my brother-in-law, his name is Donnie Lawson. He's pretty good, pretty tech savvy with stuff. Pretty level-headed. I have two other investigators that are somewhat new. We haven't had a whole lot going on, so they're still kind of fresh at it. One of them is John Reese, who is he actually was a physics major. He as well is a paramedic. Um, he's pretty good with the tech stuff too, but he really goes into the physics of stuff. So that's what he's questioning, which is great. I love it. The other one is David Green, who is he's one of our investigators. He also does photography, so he's good with still pictures, and he does a little bit of tech, and so he's pretty good with just trying to come up with answers as well. But again, they're pretty new at it. They've been to just a handful of investigations, so we're still working on doing some training and things like that to get us up to par.
That's really cool. That sounds like you have a lot of potential to do a lot of good work with that lineup.
We do, absolutely. We are a part of the TAPS family, so we do get cases every once in a while. And to be honest with you, the ones that we've got lately, just most of them were calling us because they think we're going to have the TV show coming with us. So that's another reason we go to the interviews.
That's an issue.
Yeah.
They want ghost hunters to come to their house so they can be on TV. Now, do you guys have like a production crew with you, or do you rely just on static cameras, handheld cameras? What's the video production like?
We have static cameras, the infrared, and we also have GoPros, stuff like that. I'm actually right now working on a piece of device that, so everybody knows Toys R Us went out of business. We had one by the house, going there for the kids, and I saw this robot that had like a clamp and so it had a microphone on it, a hand that clamps things, a light, and a camera. So, and it was like dropped 40% from what it was. So immediately I went, I got to have that, and I'm going to tweak it.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm doing with it is I am going to, and you can record all the video from it as well. But what I'm doing is I'm adding a mount for my thermal full spectrum GoPro to put it on the head, and it will hold a recorder. So I'm actually taking the human element out of the investigation because it has a microphone on it. I can speak through it and ask the questions, and the microphone and the recorder will just pick it all up.
Yeah, that's cool. We have a similar device. Derek Schreiner, who's in the chat, he took an RC truck, put FPV camera on it, and mounting equipment to mount, recorders and meters and such. And we put the full spectrum GoPros on front and back and light, use the dead lights to light it up. And it's cool. You could take the human element out of it and drive it around.
Right.
You can extend your senses with it. It's really cool to do that.
Right.
That's awesome. Anything else that you can think of, tech wise, that may be different from what people are used to seeing?
Not yet. I have things in the works that I'm working on trying to develop that deals more with medical aspects of it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping to be able to get that out pretty soon, but it's going to take some development because I'm going to need software and all kinds of stuff with it. But it's going to be measuring more biometrics than what I do now.
Right. I am really, really interested in that kind of data because that's stuff that I cannot do right now, and it would be really, really cool to be able to do that for sure. I think it's very valuable in the paranormal field, and it's something that's lacking, I think.
Absolutely.
All right. Before we okay, go ahead.
I was saying that's the other thing is all the research I do. I don't mind educating everybody. I tell everybody, hey, look, this is what I'm doing. This is what the results were. Try it yourself.
Absolutely. So, what is some of the, before I get to Jess and back to the comments before we wrap it up? What is some of the suggestions you can do, low tech or easy things you can do to kind of do the work that you're
Low
doing?
tech, the easiest, lowest tech anybody can do is get the pulse ox. It just sits on your finger. You turn it on. It tells you your pulse. It tells you your oxygen saturations. That way, you can kind of monitor if things are happening. You can see if your pulse jumps or whatnot, or you can even check and see, okay, well, you're in these weird places. What's your oxygen levels going to do? Are they going to dip? Are they good? That kind of thing. So those are things that you can, tangible things that you can research and say, okay, well, this time this was happening. This is what my pulse did. This is what my oxygen saturations did, if they did anything. So that's the easiest and lowest tech and pretty inexpensive thing you can do right off.
Right. I know some of my investigators wear Fitbits. Is that something that could be useful?
Yeah, it could be. They absolutely could. I don't have a Fitbit, so I don't know if they do it if it reads continuously or not. And I know it doesn't read the oxygen saturation, but I know it does a pulse.
Right.
So I don't know.
I was trying to think of something anybody can get a hold of to do, and stuff like that.
Well, pulse oxes you can buy literally at most drugstores
Right. Yeah.
for like $30.
That's good advice. We're gonna have to look into that, see if we can start doing some stuff like that. Jess,
Right.
any other questions or comments we could?
Yes, there was the last one. If a person has a split personality before they died, and you found their spirits, would the spirit have a split personality too?
Oh,
So
that's a
here's
good
the best
question.
advice I've always been told. How they were in life is how they're going to be in death. Nothing
Okay.
changes.
Good
So
answer.
and what I've always been told when it comes back to that, if they were an a-hole in life, they're going to be an a-hole in death.
Right.
So
Good answer. Anything else?
No, I think that's it that I'm seeing.
Do you have any questions for Chris?
No, actually, has been very interesting to me.
I
well,
thought so.
Yes. I
I do
was just sitting
a
there
whole
watching.
lecture.
Right. I was just sitting
I
there
do a
watching.
whole
I'm like,
lecture.
oh,
Oh, sorry,
go
go ahead.
ahead. I was just sitting there
Uh,
watching, and then I was like, oh, wait, I'm supposed to read the comments.
Happens to me all the time.
Right?
All right. Well, we're getting close, buddy. The hour goes by fast. I want to thank you
it
for
does.
coming on the show, and
Thanks for having me.
I've learned some things, and you've definitely piqued my interest. I know I have your website and your social media in the description of this video, but I want you to tell the viewers where they can find you. Where do you want to direct them to learn about your work and follow your updates and progress in the paranormal field?
So obviously, I have Facebook. It's at Chris Balassone. Um, I have my team has a Facebook page, Tri City Paranormal. I have a website, theparanormalparamedic.com, or my team, tricityparanormal.com. Um, I have a YouTube. If you look under Chris Balassone, that's where I actually have the monitor that goes off when we're asking questions. And I think that's about it.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see what kind of stuff you come up with and how you're able to progress with all these different ideas using medical equipment and having just that medical knowledge to apply to the paranormal. I think it's missing. That data acquisition is missing, and I hope everybody that's watching the show will at least try to think, how they can maybe acquire some more data, like go out there, like he said, and pick up that little thing that measures the oxygen level, in your pulse, because that can give you some useful information. And it'd be interesting to see that graphed out, with everything else that you gather during an investigation. So,
For everybody listening, when it comes to paranormal investigating, the best way I can say it is start thinking outside the box.
Yes.
Don't just go in there with the same stuff that we've always been done because we already know what the results are. Start thinking outside the box. That's what's going to get us further.
Amen. Hallelujah. Oh, I love it, Chris. You've been a delight to talk to. Very knowledgeable, very interesting. Maybe we'll have you on again. I'll
Sure.
definitely be following you a lot closer, and it's really cool to meet
Sure.
you. Hopefully, I know we're a little bit of ways apart, but we might meet up in some, event or convention, or even better,
Yeah, absolutely.
we may be able to do an investigation together at some point. So,
Yeah,
you can follow what we do on this channel, YouTube channel, or you can just go visit our website as well. I'll send you the information so when you have time,
sure.
you can link up and you can learn more about us. But I want to let you
Absolutely.
go. You
All
have a
right.
good night, sir, and good luck to you and all the best wishes and everything. I support you 100%.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me on.
You are very welcome. You can hang out in the video call, or you can get off right now, whatever you'd like to do. But I'm going to go ahead and start finishing up this live show.
All right.
All right, guys. Well, there you have it, Chris Balassone. Very, very interesting stuff, guys. I definitely looking forward to seeing some of his work in the future. And please visit all the links that you see in the video description. Check out his website. Follow him on Facebook. All that good stuff. It's going to be pretty interesting to see what type of stuff come out of the medical field to help the paranormal understand some of the stuff that's going on with the body and what could be out there, right? So, very interesting stuff. Okay. Like I told Chris, please consider going to our website, interfacedeath.net.com, whatever you want to type in. Follow our work, okay? We do a lot of these Necromancer live shows every week. In fact, we have a different guest on, authors, investigators, even a paracelebrity. I'll talk to anybody. So if you know somebody that would like to be a guest on this show, hit me up. Let me know. You can email me at justinbrown@interfacedeath.net or contact me on Facebook. Go to the website, call me. I don't care, whatever you'd like to do. If you're watching and you'd like to be a guest, just let me know and we'll set it up. Okay, guys. I always want you guys to follow the other stuff that we do outside of Necromancer. If you want to support us outside of watching these videos, sharing these videos, watching what we do, you can do that, okay? And the support that we're getting on patreon.com is increasing, and it's awesome, okay, guys? We cannot continue to do what we're doing without our Patreon supporters. So if you're interested in doing that, go to patreon.com/support interface death. You can get rewards depending on what tier of pledge that you would offer. So please consider checking that out. The link is in the description. You can follow the Necromancer live show on Facebook at facebook.com/Necromancer live show. You can follow along with what we do on our paranormal research team, Interface Death, on Twitter and Instagram as well. We always shout out our patrons on all of our live shows and put them in the credits of all of our video productions. So without them, we could not continue this work. Christy Brown, which is my wife, Scott Stewart, which is Scotty Fox in the chat, Clay Borman, Jessica Bias is now a patron. She's our chat moderator. We got Matthew Jackson, RJ Murphy, Matt Bitton, Liz Coy, and Bill Davis. All of these names is what makes this show possible, is what makes it possible for us to continue and maybe even possibly do more with all this content we provide. So without them, we can't do it. Our thanks goes out to them. So there you have it, guys. I'm going to leave it there. Thank you very much for tuning in each and every Wednesday. We're going to be on the Soapbox Show on Facebook again Tuesday. I don't know what the topic's going to be. We'll look on my calendar to see who our next guest is. It looks like it's Joy. I don't know how to pronounce the last name, but it's Pugh. I will learn how to pronounce these names, okay? It could be Pooh. It could be something else, but I don't want to butcher it, okay? But check in next week with Necromancer Live Show, 8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. I'm going to leave it there. Thank you very much for watching. You guys are in my heart each and every day. I love you very much, and without your support, I would not be here doing this. So stick around for a little bit of our video promotions. If you have not watched them, you have a good night, and I bid you farewell.
Everything just got real dark. Everything's vacant. And there's a little girl back here